Welcome to Fishing Fridays radio podcast, where we go behind the scenes and uncover the tactics and strategies top fishermen are using to catch more fish, dominate tournaments, and how you can get those same results. Here is your host, Mike Grady.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Diggin' Fishing Fridays. I'm your host, Mike Grady. I'm excited today because I have Marcel Baker here. Marcel is the Bassin Magazine's Big Bass World Champion, state champ for the state of Alabama in 2018, and he came in fifth out of 52 anglers from across the nation in the national event. Welcome, Marcel.
Thank you, sir. It's glad to be here today.
Awesome. Marcel, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Just a local fisherman, like a lot of the guys in the South. I live in a small town on the east side of the state, Heflin, Alabama. It's a very, very small community, but we got a lot of good fishing around here. So, just a normal guy working a 9 to 5 with 2 kids. I have a beautiful wife, and just like to fish.
And you happen to be really good at it.
So I'm told. It's still yet to be proven, I don't think.
So tell our listeners, how'd you get started fishing?
Well, I started like most guys. I started fishing when I was young. My granddaddy James Baker used to take me out on the weekends, and we used to do catfishing and bluegill fishing, just like a lot of kids. I kind of got away from it the older I got, when I started hitting my teens, and then got back into it towards the end of my teens, and I don't know, catfishing just kind of lost its challenge to me. Its appeal to me kind of slowed down. So I wanted a little bit more of a challenge. So I started bass fishing. First couple of years were rough. They were really tough. I could catch some smaller fish, but I just couldn't catch any size. And I don't know. I just started praying for somebody to maybe just happen to come along and to teach me something. And sure enough, a local angler around where I live at, his name's Lee Barber. He, I don't know, he just kind of showed up more or less at my front doorstep, and we started fishing. And man, I'm telling you, somebody that can fish, the man can really feel alive well. And I don't know, he just started teaching me, and we started catching fish. He started teaching me different techniques, and I developed a few of my own. And I don't know, here we are after about 6 years. I think I've been bass fishing now about 6 years, and I don't know, the fish just started getting bigger, and then we still fish on a regular basis, and we really have a good time.
That sounds fantastic, man. So, I mean, once you learned from him, what made you start tournament fishing?
Well, we had a local, I guess you could say a charity tournament if you want to. It benefits our local trade school. And they decided to try to raise some money, so they had a tournament at our local watershed about 3 years ago. And I don't know, it's a lake that I fished since I was a kid, and I decided I'd like to try to give it a shot. I'd never really heavily bass fished it, but I've known of some really big fish to come out of it. And I just decided to give it a shot. So I fished that tournament, and it didn't go like I saw it playing out in my mind. I think I wound up coming in like 4th or 5th out of 15 or 20 boats. And I didn't catch anything big. I think I only caught like 3 or 4 fish. And there was a father and son there fishing, and that wound up winning it. And they won with a 6-pound fish, a big fish. And they took the field by 13 pounds, 14 pounds, something like that. So I really got a whooping, in that tournament. Well, the following year, they decided to have it again. And I thought me and my son, I like fishing with my children. I thought me and him may be able to go and give it a shot, see if we could do any better. And I actually won that tournament. They didn't go by weight. They went by inches, which some tournaments do that, which is fine. The total length is what they'll go with. And I wound up winning that tournament, and my son came in second in his division. They had an adult division and a children's division, and he come in second. And then they had it again in 2018. And I won that tournament again. That same father and son that won that first year has been competing every year, so we're kind of going back and forth. But I managed to win it again in 2018, and my son won his division in 2018. So that's just what kind of started it. it's not something that I do full time, but I do like the competitive spirit of it, being surrounded by people that are as passionate about the sport and love, just the outdoors and being out fishing. And so that's kind of what kind of drew me to the Big Bass World Championship, to see, how I could fare against some of the greatest weekend anglers in the country. That's kind of how I got started.
So in that tournament, there was a pretty good weekend for the Bakers, huh?
Oh man, it was, I think we had a little mini party over it. We thought we was kings of the world.
So let me ask you a question. When you started tournament fishing, what was the biggest problem you found in competitive fishing?
The biggest problem with competitive fishing is, for me, is my style of fishing. My style of fishing, I like fishing. My favorite body of water to fish is a farm pond. A lot of guys don't really think that big fish grow in farm ponds, or they don't think it's much of a challenge, or it's not big enough, or whatever their reasons are. But we all love the sport, and we all have different ways of fishing that we like to do. But my favorite type of fishing is farm pond fishing, anything from 2.5 acres to 10, 15 acres. And I also like fishing lakes that are up to, say 15, 20 acres all the way up to, 150 acres. And then I like big reservoirs that, you can get up into 250, 300, 400, 500 acres, all the way up to, I guess, to 1,000. I bet is normally what I fish. But when you get into competitive fishing, hardly ever are tournaments on that small of a body of water. And there's such a difference in fishing a farm pond compared to fishing, a lake, say, like in the Big Bass World Championship. It was held in Tulsa, Oklahoma, if I remember correctly. And I think that reservoir, when I looked it up, was like 10,000 acres. And man, you're talking about a world of difference. I found myself hitting a wall, because when you can go to your local ponds, your local lakes that are 10, 15, 20, 30 acres, you fishermen, whether they know it or not, subconsciously, they know where they've had success. They know where they've caught big fish at. They know what baits work, what colors work, and where they work and when they work. And it's not the same when you go to somewhere that's, say, 10,000 acres, where even if you wanted to, you could not cover every square inch of that lake in a full day. And that lake is going to change each day, each hour, each week, each month, each year. It's constantly changing. So for me, the biggest trouble I had, the wall that I hit, is probably going to be the transition from fishing, say, a bathtub compared to, these major reservoirs. That's probably the biggest problem that I've found so far.
Wow. So, in that struggle, what did you learn that helped you succeed?
What helped me succeed the most is sticking with what I was most confident in. Right before I went to the Big Bass World Championship, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous, because this will, up until this point, be the biggest tournament that I fished, and probably one of the biggest bodies of water that I fished. And so I found myself asking advice from other fishermen, from Lee, my granddaddy. I even got I'm not going to say desperate, but I just took a shot in the dark and started reaching out to people like Jimmy Houston, Bill Dance. I was reaching out to these guys, via social media, just kind of hoping that maybe they would respond. And as crazy as it's going to sound, Bill Dance actually did respond to me back on Facebook Messenger. I explained to him what I had going on and what I was trying to do, and could he offer any advice. And the number one thing he told me was confidence. He said, don't try to go out there throwing things that you're not confident in. Don't go out there trying to throw things, just trying to learn a new technique. He said, go out there and fish with what got you there. He said, all bass speak the same language. And so he said, fish with what you're confident in, and ultimately just remember to have fun. And so when I got ready to go out there, I went ahead and had it in my head what I was going to try to use based off of, technically what got me there. And so confidence is what seemed to have helped me the most, was confident in what I'm throwing. Everything that I threw that day, during that tournament, I had complete confidence in, to the point of anglers get so confident in their baits that or you feel as if every cast is going to be a fish. And maybe even to the point where you feel like every cast is going to be the big fish. And is that the case? 99% of the time, no. But in tournament situations, all you need is one cast. So if you can keep that confidence up and be able to throw the confidence baits that you rely on the most, eventually it's gonna pay off. So what helped me the most was throwing confidence baits and having confidence in what I was throwing, and that's probably what helped me the most.
That sounds fantastic. Now let me ask you. Now, when you show up for a tournament, do you, like the night before or morning of, do you set out a plan to fish the tournament?
Absolutely. The night before, the week leading up to, a month prior, you can even go back that far if you want to, I go ahead and start fishing even more so of what I'm confident in and fishing it in a way that I think is going to give me the highest success rate. So yes, before the tournament, I had already laid out a set of baits that I had planned on using that I had ultimate confidence in that would give me the best, chance of catching what I needed to try to win. And then naturally I have a second set that if the first set doesn't produce, because the first set is you're wanting to cover all the water columns. And for me, starting from the top of the water column, going to the middle and going to the bottom till you find fish. And once you can throw the most expensive bait on the most expensive rig out there, but if there's not fish in the vicinity or you're not fishing where the fish are, then you can't catch anything. So I did my best to cover all the water columns and in a progression over the course of the day is how I had set up planning to fish for that tournament, and it paid off pretty well.
So as you're going through your plan, and you're getting feedback from the lake, or from the water, I should say, what's the hardest part about implementing your plan?
The hardest part is going to be once you go through your progressions and you're not getting any feedback. When you're throwing, your confidence baits for, say, the top water and it's not producing. Okay, so you check it off. And then you go down to you're trying to work the middle of the water column. So you're trying to throw something like a shallow diving crankbait or a medium diving crankbait or a rattle trap or a jerk bait. You're working the middle water column and you're not getting any feedback. And then you start kind of feeling like you're getting desperate. So you start working the bottom, whether you're throwing a spinner bait, letting it sink all the way to the bottom and slow rolling it back to you, or you're hopping a jig along, or you're working a Ned rig or a wacky rig and you're still not getting any feedback. There's where you start running into trouble, because then you start going, okay, well, I know one of these baits will work. I'm working. The fish got to be on the top, the middle, or the bottom, but I'm not getting any bites. There's where you start kind of getting kind of frustrated because it's not panning out the way you want to. But you just keep going through your progressions. The fish can't just grow legs and get out and walk off. So being able to stay the course and just keep throwing what you're confident in places that you think is going to hold fish. Eventually, it's got to pay off. It's just persistence, I think, is what winds up helping you in situations like that.
Has your plan evolved over time?
Absolutely. When you first start bass fishing, you're just trying to catch fish, and then you start trying to critique it a little bit, and you start trying to get a little more methodical. And you start, having confidence in what you're throwing. You start throwing it more. You start making better casts. And if I can look back from 6 years ago to when I first started bass fishing, throwing, rooster tails and flukes, things like that still work perfectly fine and will still catch fish today just like they did when they were created. I'd like to say that, yes, some of the techniques and some of the things that I use now has evolved tremendously over the past 6 years. I'd say absolutely.
So tell our listeners, what results have you gotten from your plan as it's gone on to the plan you're using today?
From when I first started, being able to catch a fish was classified as a successful day in the beginning. And after having time to work on it, because fishing to me is an art. There's an art to it. There's a way that it should be done in order to give you the best success rate, and not just to catch fish, but to catch quality fish. The kind of fish that I'm catching now, I couldn't even have dreamed about when I first started. So, I don't know. It's weird to see how things can transpire and can get, really interesting the more that you really work at something. And it's just crazy how things have really changed over the past 6 years for me.
In that 6 years, let me ask you, in that 6 years, and this is, I'm kind of came up with this question by, what have you learned or what's made you better at fishing overall since you started? What's the number one skill you've developed?
This is going to seem like a really, really weird answer, but probably, I don't know if you'd call it a skill, but it's something I think that gets forgotten as fishermen fish for so long. And that's just to remember exactly why we all started fishing to begin with. And it's just to have fun. Fishing without fun, I mean, nobody would want to do it. People just don't like doing things that they're not having fun doing. So something that I've had to develop and to remember when I'm out on the water, because you go out there on certain days and they're not the best days. You may catch 3 or 4 fish, and you may catch, 15 or 20, and they not have any size. And if you get that mentality going out there that, I've got to go out here and I've got to catch a 10-pounder today or it's just not going to be a good day, I think fishing would eventually just kind of lose its glamour that it has for us. The drive to want to do it, the passion, the addiction that we all have to want to do it and to get better at it and to be successful, just wouldn't really be there if we weren't having fun. So the number one skill, if we're going to call it that I've tried to develop and I'm still trying to develop, because when you're having a rough day on the water, it's really hard for a fisherman to go, yeah, I'm having a great time out here not catching fish. Days like that, you kind of just call it casting practice. But something that I'm constantly trying to remind myself to do is just to remember to have fun while I'm out there. We've got soldiers overseas who are not getting to fish. We've got, people that's, older men and women that, their health won't allow them to get out and fish anymore. People, that maybe, got hurt or something, and maybe they have a handicap now that doesn't allow them to be able to fish or whatever. And any one of those people that I just named, any one of that in those groups, would give anything just to be out fishing. And, I think that we all should just sometimes just step back and remember, yes, we want to catch big fish. We want to catch a lot of fish, but just to remember to have fun and to be grateful, for God blessing us to be able to fish in the great country that we have. So that's for me the number one skill that I've tried to develop and to continue to try to add to each and every trip out on the water.
I'll tell you, Marcel, to be honest with you, that's sage advice for anything in life. But lastly, as we come to the end of our interview, I always ask 2 questions. So let me ask you, what is your most successful fishing secret?
My most successful fishing secret? Only real fishermen are going to get this. Only real fishermen. Now, people that just started fishing, they may think I'm just being funny, or they may not think it makes any sense. But real fishermen, hardcore, been doing it for a long time, veteran fishermen will understand exactly what I say when I say this. And my number one secret is going to be in fishing is that to catch the biggest fish in any body of water, all the big fish that I've caught, on any given body of water, on any day, doesn't matter what state you're in, the biggest fish that you will ever catch will always be in the wettest water. Always be in the wettest water. If you find the wettest water, you will catch the biggest fish in the lake. I can almost guarantee it 100% of the time.
Uh-huh. And now, last question. What's your most successful fishing lure? What's the one that works for you the best?
Each year it seems to have changed over the past 6 years of me fishing. But for the past 2, and it's really hard because there's 2 of them. So for all the listeners that are listening, they can give either one of these a shot. Most of you out there probably have already kind of got on to it. These are just my 2 favorites. I love a buzzbait. It's just hard to beat a buzzbait. The louder, the better. It gets vicious strikes. It catches really big fish. I have 2 particular ones that I like. One is the Booyah, clacker, 1/2 ounce in chartreuse. It's fantastic. And another one is made by Jackal. It's really, really nice. It's a 1/2 ounce as well. I think it just came out last year. Either one of those is just hard to beat. They catch really good fish. They catch really big fish. But the only one that I probably can put over that one, and it's the one that actually helped me catch the fish that qualified me for the state champion of Alabama, and that's a river to sea ruckus. They have many different colors for all different species of bait fish that bass like to eat. They've got bluegill colors. They've got crawfish colors. They've got everything that you can think of. But I would go and get any one of those. My personal preference is the cold-blooded, which is a crawfish pattern, and it's 3/4 of an ounce. And I'm telling you, anybody that does not own one, yeah, you're really missing out. You can really catch some monster fish on these things. You can get them on Tackle Warehouse. You can get them on eBay. Just to give it a shot, because they're going to cost anywhere from $11 to $14, I think. Just buy one, take it out, try it, and just watch and see what happens. Just hang on. You're going to catch some really big fish with it.
Marcel, that's awesome, man. I want to thank you for being on our show. You gave our listeners a ton of great information.
Oh, well, I was happy to help, and it was an honor to be on the show today.
Again, thanks. And remember, folks, Marcel is Bassin Magazine's 2018 Big Bass State Champ for the state of Alabama. Again, Marcel, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for listening to Fishing Fridays Radio Podcast. If you'd like to be notified anytime we release a new episode, just hit subscribe and like this episode. Or you can subscribe over at fishingfridaysradio.com. In addition to that, we would love to send you a free gift. You can find that free gift at giveaway.digandanchors.com. Thanks again for listening.